looking at what other positions need strengthening in the team, obviously we've got a pretty strong 11 in general. I think we all agree with that. What other parts of the squad do you think need to be strengthened, Stevie, in particular?
Well, funny enough, the other day, they're just at a boredom and work. I end up just writing down all the players in each position just to see what we're needing. And I think what we've maybe spoke about before, midfield, I wouldn't mind another player coming in. I was looking at it as well. We're really heavy in central defenders, maybe back pre-season, like people like Edmondson's in there, so he'll probably go. But I also got a wee bit of a worry about left back, to be honest, with Barisic. I know it's a different tactic what you were asking there maybe there, but if he goes, I would also like to see maybe. I'm a bit worried about if Bassey can maybe fill his shoes, to be honest, and he's got enough in the tank for that. So I'd like to see us maybe have a look at left back in case he goes. But midfielders wise, I think that's really where we'd like to strengthen. I was really encouraged with them looking at, or at least speculation about that Veerman from Poland. And I know that might be a wee bit out of budget, but it's encouraging that that's maybe the sort of quality we're going for. And I'd like to see if we're going for a midfielder, it's a midfielder that can come in and really push for a starting. Like start in the starting team basically, rather than just supplementing the first 11. So that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to just to make sure we've got enough cover and enough quality in the back where we left back, and then also maybe a midfielder coming in.
Ross, I mean, I think that's a fair point, isn't it? When you talk about Bassey, is Bassey really ever going to be that kind of player that takes over from Barisic? And is he really pushing them enough? When you look at sort of Nathan Patterson is clearly pushing Tavernier.
Yep.
I know Tav kind of jokingly said he could move up front and play as a striker, but I know it's just like Nathan's obviously there in the background and he's waiting to take Tav's position.
Yeah.
I don't really feel that's the same with Calvin Bassey. Do you feel that way as well?
I think it's hard to judge him, man. It's a boy who's came from playing left back for Leicester, where they're going to get the ball forward to Vardy, and I'd imagine that's the way their youth teams would play as well, get the ball forward as quick as possible, coming to us where he's expected to essentially play left wing. Do you know what I mean? If you look at our team, our team play as proper wide men, look to expect to put crosses and that in. So I'd like to think that Barisic is taking the time, the way Tavernier's obviously took the time to kind of nurture own Patterson. I'd like to hope that he shares his experience with the guy. But on your actual question, for me, Steven Gerrard being our manager, I'm looking for somebody who's got that trait of Steven Gerrard, somebody that when a game's not in each, you've got somebody that can take a pop for 30 yards. I feel as if Kamara, Davis, Jack, Arfield gives you the runs, obviously a bit more attacking, but I'd like to see somebody that can hit a shot for 35 yards and maybe even a deflection or a rebound or something. I feel as if we're very shot shy sometimes in the tighter games. That could really make a difference to us to have that option of somebody having a pop for 30 yards and putting one in the top corner. I know they players don't come cheap, do you know what I mean? But there must be somebody out there.
Scott, coming to you, when you look at that midfield and you look at the age of Scott Arfield and Stephen Davis, I know age isn't the be all and end all when you watch how good Stephen Davis is, but is it important now that maybe we're looking at maybe kind of younger midfield players who can maybe come in and do that bit of development with a Stephen Davis or a Scott Arfield, and that when they move on in a year's time or potentially maybe a little bit longer, somebody else is ready to step in and take over?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get Zungu in a permanent, but we might. I personally wouldn't, but might get him a permanent. I've seen glimpses of a controlling midfielder on him from the various minutes, limited minutes he's played. But touch what Stevie said, I would definitely look at getting a defensive midfielder, because when Ryan Jack's not been in the team, we have lacked a bit of stability in the middle of the park. We've only conceded, I think it's the one goal when Ryan Jack's been in the park this season, and that was the last minute equaliser against Hamilton. So I feel when Ryan Jack plays, there's a lot more stability and defensive nous in the team, and I think we need a replacement for him, because obviously he's getting 28, 29 now. So if we get a defensive midfielder in that he can train alongside Jack, even Steven Gerrard, one of the best midfielders in English football history. So definitely look at Middle Park as top of my shopping list really for the summer.
Yeah, I suppose the biggest problem that Stevie spoke about earlier on, it's the financial aspect of all these deals. I mean, I think with Veerman, there was kind of reports ranging from 5 million to 8 million. that would suggest that if we were trying to sign somebody of that ilk, he would have to come in and start. So then who drops out the team if we sign this guy? And I think that's always the factor that you take in. I mean, we've been very lucky. Like Stephen Davis cost us nothing really. Ryan Jack was a free transfer for Aberdeen. Glenn Kamara, as everybody knows, £50,000, and then Joe Aribo cost a couple of $100,000 for Charlton. So we've never really spent that much money on that central midfield. So,
No.
It'll be interesting to see if we do go out now and try and invest in somebody who, like the management and Ross Wilson and the scouts feel takes us to that next level. Because I suppose that's the next question I was going to ask. Do we need to look at a different quality of player now because our focus is now on the Champions League? Or is it just a matter of trusting what we've done in the last couple of years and bringing in that same type of player? I'll come to you first, Stevie.
For me, I'm always wanting us to improve and go for better and try and bring in a player of quality that can push us on to the next level. I think that's always got to be key. And like you're saying, it's a tricky one, and teams have probably fell in this trap before. It's where do you stick or do you twist when you're going into the Champions League qualifications, and do you spend your money early in the hope that that'll push you in, or do you wait in case you don't go through and you actually don't spend money you don't really have? But I'm hopeful the squad that we've got at the minute can get us through. We've done well in Europe recently, so if we can just bring in another player that's of a quality for the Champions League level, and we're just maybe talking one player, for me, it's all you really need. I think that would be massive for us. It's always just building on your success as well, and also always when you're ambitious and you want to go for more. I think there's probably players leaving in this summer, this window as well. So maybe that money that can come from that can help us invest as well. It's always that sort of a turnover of like selling players for high and bringing in the next one. You can maybe bring a wee bit cheaper and then sell again. So I'd love us to see you go for a quality midfielder and somebody that's going to not just come in the starting 11, but also be the main player in our team. I'd love to see us do that if we can finances allow, basically.
Yeah. Ross, just kind of slightly off topic with what Stevie's talking about there. Obviously, in the last kind of couple of seasons, Celtic have basically not bought anybody. Going into these Champions League qualifiers, and they've ended up kind of falling out. Is that a risk that we can afford to take, or do you think that we need to go out and add players before the qualification stages?
I think the squad we've got now could get us through qualifiers. I also think at 36 years of age, should Stephen Davis, as great as he's been this season, should he now be, next season should be a transition period for Stephen Davis where he's played more or less every game this season. So for me, I would like to see us spending money on a central midfielder who would come in as a starter, and Davis and Kamara would share that kind of controlling role. Playing against teams like Hamilton, Ross County, St Johnstone, Aberdeen, do we need two that are going to sit and try and control the midfield? Sometimes I feel as if we could be doing with somebody who's going to be more adventurous, do you know what I mean, and have the one sitting. So for me, it's a big... In answer to your question, the team we've got now, I believe, could get through to qualifiers. They've proved this year that they can mix it in Europe. But if you were to go and spend 5-8 million on a player who's going to give you that wee bit of drive, and maybe that's the guy who gives you the goals for midfield as well. Do you know what I mean? Probably Kamara, Davis, and Jack this season. You'd be lucky if they've scored 10 goals between the three of them. I think that could be a way to go next season, to look at maybe phasing Davis out, and Kamara becomes that kind of holding. Kamara becomes your controlling guy. You've got Jack, who's your cover when right and left back go. So the third guy could then be somebody who can go and join in the attack and go beyond a kind of Scott Arfield type role, but a bit better.
Yeah. No, I think that's very fair, mate. I totally accept what you're saying. I think it's a very fair point. And I think the thing I was going to ask Scott next is, when obviously getting to the Champions League is obviously massive in terms of the financial aspect of it. For instance, if it is the kind of 20-30 million pounds that you get for making the group stages, is spending say 5, 6, 7 million pounds on two players really that much, or is that a risk that we can't afford to take, knowing that if we don't qualify, we probably then need to sell someone?
I don't think it is a risk, because from everything I've read and heard, our financial situation is fine. Obviously, Europa League. Obviously, we didn't have the crowds in this season, which didn't help. But Europa League, even winning the league, last 16, Europe, winning games in group stages gets you X amount of money. So I think our financial situation is fine, and if we spend £5 million on a central midfielder, it's not the end of the world. Spent £5 million on Roof, it was £4 million on Hadji, it was £3 million on Itten last summer, and obviously earn more money this season through Europe. So I don't see a problem with spending £5-6 million on a central midfielder.
I think the big thing also we do need to remember as well with some of these deals is we're still paying some of these deals up. Like Hadji, I think was spread over like 3 years. I dare say Roofs was spread over a few years, same with Itten. So I suppose fans need to also remember is for all, we might not spend that much money this summer, we're still paying for some of the previous transfers of players that are now at the club. So I suppose it's trying to strike that balance, but clearly there's people a lot smarter than us who look at all these things and make these determinations. So hopefully in the summer we see a couple more signings, but it's exciting to see that we've announced Fashion Sakala to go with, the young lad for Bournemouth. I don't know if I should say his name because he'll probably destroy it, so I'll leave it for somebody else.